Hello, my name is Shub Tucker, and I'm a third-year student at Ohio State in the GIS program. For my final project for geospatial databases, I will be using PostGIS and ArcGIS Pro to create, query, and visualize a geospatial database on medical facilities in minority neighborhoods in Columbus, Ohio. To provide a brief introduction, this project concept was inspired by past discussions I've had on applying GIS technology to social equity issues in my other geography coursework. In my Fundamentals of GIS course, I created a network analysis layer to analyze accessibility to public transportation. My professor for Geography 5301, Dr. Harvey Miller, also utilizes a lot of GIS work to visualize the impacts of different social issues on marginalized communities. Because of that, I decided to use this project as an opportunity to explore healthcare access across various groups in Columbus, as there are very obvious racial divisions in healthcare accessibility. The main goal of this project is to gauge access that Black residents of Columbus have to healthcare facilities by creating and querying a geospatial database. The methodology I used involved finding neighborhoods with high racial minority populations, finding healthcare facilities in these neighborhoods, and then analyzing this data in the broader scheme of things. I used three main data sets for this project. In order to find which areas of Columbus have the largest populations of Black people, I utilized a feature layer of census tracts organized by the population of each race in each tract. Using Columbus's OpenGIS data portal, I found a shapefile and a CSV file on medical facilities in the Columbus area, and I used the same source to find a shapefile on Columbus's neighborhood and planning area boundaries. To provide a brief overview of my methodology, I started off by cleaning up each dataset and narrowing down what attributes and values I wanted to focus on. I used ArcGIS in the process of doing this. Next, I created a database in pgadmin and used the shapefile import tool to import the shapefiles of neighborhood areas and medical facilities into pgadmin and made tables from them. Once I created the database, I used structured query language, or SQL, to run a spatial and non-spatial query, and then used ArcGIS to visualize the results of that query. From there, I analyzed those results. All right, so to start off, I imported the census demographics feature layer into a map document in ArcGIS, and then ran several queries to narrow down which geographic areas to focus on. I tried to find census tracts in Columbus where the population of Black people made up 80% or more of the total population in that tract. I exported these results into an Excel sheet and ran the census tract numbers to determine which neighborhoods each tract lined up with. From there, I cleaned up the spreadsheet and removed any attributes that I wouldn't be working with or querying. All right, so then I used the census tract data from the last step to find what neighborhoods of Columbus are predominantly Black. In order to do this, I used the Columbus neighborhoods shapefile and then ran queries on it based off of the information I got from the census feature layer. I used the census tracts to find what neighborhoods I wanted to focus on, and then I used select by attributes queries in the Columbus neighborhoods shapefile to find each of those neighborhoods on there. In order to ensure that I wasn't selecting neighborhoods to study based off of the demographics of one outlier census tract, I cross-checked the neighborhoods I wanted to study with other census data on the greater Columbus area just to make sure. From there, I narrowed down 4 different neighborhoods I wanted to focus on, and then I exported the polygons for these neighborhoods into a new shapefile. The neighborhoods that I wanted to focus on were North Linden, South Linden, Milo Grogan, and Near East Columbus. I made a separate shapefile for these 4 neighborhoods so that I wouldn't have to deal with data from anything else, and it would allow me to focus on data just from those 4 neighborhoods. So after cleaning up my data and finalizing everything and creating a final shapefile of the neighborhoods I wanted to focus on, I began to start building a database in pgadmin. I created a new database, enabled the PostGIS extension, and then built a schema for the tables. And then from there, I used the PostGIS shapefile import manager to load the shapefile of the neighborhoods that I built, along with the shapefile of medical facilities in Columbus. This can be demonstrated in the screenshots on the slide. So after importing those shapefiles and then creating tables in the schema, I assigned primary and foreign keys to the database and the tables. I used the object ID column of the medical facilities table as the primary key, and I used the name of each neighborhood as the primary key for the neighborhoods table. Then I created a foreign key in the medical facilities table that referred back to the name of each neighborhood in the neighborhoods table. I had to use an SQL query to switch the SRID of the neighborhood shapefile. The two shapefiles were on different reference systems. So I switched the neighborhood data over to SRID 4269. I didn't have to do a lot of data cleanup because I sorted through a lot of it beforehand before I imported the shapefiles into pgadmin. So after I finished building my database and assigning primary keys to the tables, I started to query the database. I wrote an SQL code to perform a spatial query on the database first. The code is shown on the slide, but essentially I wanted to query the database to see how many healthcare facilities are located in the Milo Grogan neighborhood. After executing this code in pgadmin, I saw that there was only one healthcare facility in the entire neighborhood. I used a select by attributes query in ArcGIS to visualize that one facility within those neighborhood boundaries, as you can see on the slide. Next, I also wanted to write an SQL code to see how many healthcare providers in all 4 of these neighborhoods specialized in women's health in particular. I wanted to query the database so that I could obtain the name of each provider and the address for each provider. The code I executed in pgadmin is shown on the slide. And then I exported the results into another table, which I then screenshotted and then put onto the slide. Counting out the duplicates, there are only 7 healthcare providers between Milo Grogan, North and South Linden, and Near East Columbus that provide specialized care for women. All right, so from building this geospatial database and performing and visualizing queries on it, it's really obvious that healthcare facilities in majority Black neighborhoods in Columbus are few and far between. This has serious social implications. This contributes to widespread healthcare disparities that Black people across the city suffer from, and it also creates a lot of challenges in accessing essential healthcare services for Black people, as residents of these neighborhoods have to travel further physically to receive care. In emergency medical situations where someone's life depends on a few minutes, this is a large concern because those few minutes that you have to travel could be life or death, essentially. From the last query we ran, it's also evident that people with intersectional identities bear the largest burden. There are only 7 women's healthcare facilities between all 4 of these neighborhoods, which means that Black women have an even harder time accessing the care they need than Black men. This map on the left shows all of the healthcare facilities located in these 4 neighborhoods, and we can see that healthcare facilities are very sparse in density, particularly in Milo Grogan and North Linden. Just to provide some final reflections, this project confirmed for me how poor accessibility is for those who live in Columbus's neighborhoods with large Black populations. One of the largest challenges I faced in executing this project was effectively joining these 2 tables together in pgadmin so that I could query them. As I was working on this project, I found out that the Columbus neighborhood shapefile that I created had no solid data that was grounding it to a particular geographic area. When I imported the shapefile into pgadmin, the geometry viewer just kind of had these 4 shapes just in space. There was no base map or anything grounding them. So because of that, I had to work backwards and find where I went wrong and lost these attributes. I also struggled a lot to type out the SQL codes required to actually query the database, so that required a lot of trial and error. But in the future, I think that this project could have a lot of deeper dimensions to it. I believe that using geospatial technologies will also allow us to look at like specialties of healthcare offered in each area and analyze access to services for particular health conditions. We can also use GIS to see what transportation infrastructure looks like around medical facilities to see if they're physically accessible without a car. And then on a broader note, we can also use GIS to make comparisons between Columbus's racial disparities in healthcare and other Midwestern cities. As Columbus grows, it is very important that we ensure our social systems are equitable and easily accessible, and the creation of this geospatial database is just one example of how GIS can help us build social equity. Thank you for your time.